Okay. Excellent. All right. So I'll get started here. Falcha, Jalasi, welcome everybody. Welcome to Where Kaylee. My Smisha Bradley Murphy, sound the Bayanid Hami. I guess Hami Hotalacha Vian. I guess so. My name is Bradley Murphy and I'm from East Bay. Really happy to be here. I'm going to start. Talam Angehok Kivel Parstak in the Chin Gangev show on the Migmagi. Agasared and Kuch Eterich, Isera Kuch Shanakash, Alkarstis is Koroniak Eterin Vahen. Many of us tonight are gathering on the sacred land of Mi'kma'ki, ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We acknowledge the Mi'kmaq leaders as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. And this acknowledgement is the beginning of the reason for gathering tonight, shining light on Mi'kmaq stories that hold important truths and teachings for all communities, as well as stories about Mi'kmaq and Gaelic relations over the years. Through telling and listening to these stories, we shed light on stories that we want more of and those that no longer serve us. We also lift and honor the important stories that have been historically brushed under the rug, or wisdom once intimately known but lost in the wake of colonization and displacement. So by sharing and listening, we collectively make meaning together and broaden our understanding and imagine new possibilities for our present collaborations and future generations beyond us. And that's where the creative spirit comes into view. And the theme tonight is the creative spirit. So this season, Feishagamrig, we're offering a winter's feast. So what can nourish us these days? What do we bring to the feasting table? And we're also setting a place at the table for those who are no longer with us. So I invite you to set a place at your table tonight for those who'd like to welcome in. Anoch, Karimi Jalasi, I guess Falcha, or Tara Lewis, one of my best friends. I'm welcoming my dear friend here with us tonight from Eskazoni First Nation, and we're going to have a discussion later on. And after that, I'm going to be chatting in a pre-recorded interview with Sarah Prosper, who's a choreographer, friend, and collaborator, and also from Eskazoni First Nations. Sarah is not able to be with us tonight, but we had a meeting previously that I recorded, and I'll be sharing that. But first, let's find out who else is at the feasting table and give the visitors a chance to meet and greet one another. So we're going to go into breakout rooms and give you a chance to introduce yourselves. And there's going to be some question prompts there. Are you ready there, Margie? Do you need a bit more? Margie, do you need a bit more time?
I think we're good to go.
Okay, great. See you on the other side. Welcome back. And if you're just tuning in now, I'm going to take you back a little bit. So it's Mr. Bradley Murphy, sound of Bayanid Hami on a Cape Breton. My name is Bradley Murphy, and I'm from Cape Breton, East Bay. And today our theme is the creative spirit and Mi'kmaq and Gaelic relations and storytelling traditions. And it's my honor to welcome our guest this evening, one of my best friends, road warrior buddies, Tara Lewis. Hi, Tara.
Wait, Dalawisi, Tara Lewis, Wigi Eskasohani, Unamagi, Weldasi, Nidap, Birmanidam, Juguan, Walonok. So my name is Tara Lewis. I'm from Eskasoni First Nation here in Unamagi, Cape Breton, and I'm very happy that my best friend here, Bradley, invited me this evening. So, hi, Gwe.
Where Tara's more, I find that Tara's, you're kind of one of my teachers, honestly. I've gone to a lot of different places with you and gotten to know this area where we live, Mi'kma'ki, so much better, from your experience, from your connections that seem to be so deep. And I wanted to know from you, I wanted to talk about visiting because we're having this virtual visit tonight. But recently we were talking about visiting, the importance of that. And I want to pick your brain on why you think it's important and what are your thoughts on getting back into visiting after the pandemic?
Oh. Yeah, so during the pandemic, that was really hard on me because I'm a very social person and being with people. So yeah, it was pretty bad. But it's visiting is so important to me. I think it's on even on a grain of just like culturally too. Going visiting even your parents, your siblings, your friends, your elders around the community. You learn so much. Even recently, last week, I had Bradley come with me, join me. We're heading down to the mainland here in Nova Scotia to a midwinter gathering that was being held in Millbrook First Nation. And along the way, I had a friend who I was always meaning to get to visit, but I just never made the time. So I guess this year I've wanted to almost I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I was kind of doing that anyway in some way. And one of it was visiting. And so I asked Bradley if we can stop in and a friend. And I was happy that he was willing to. And we got to visit. And, we got a lot out of it when you visit. I think we all have this cup, we fill it's either empty, half empty, could be full, but I could feel that spiritually my cup was half empty. And I think getting out and making connections, it's a part of way to fill that cup. And so yeah, I know like as a kid, like I was never home as a kid. Um I was always out. If I wasn't out visiting, I was out in the woods. And, even to make those connections out in nature, especially being Indigenous, being a Mi'kmaq person, being a Mi'kmaq woman, especially Mother Earth is our mother, to have that connection, to build that connection. So, it's always important to get out there to visit her. I love hiking. The longer the hike, the more connected I feel that I'm with her. Um, but yeah, I even so I'm a mother of seven. And I remember I was just riding down the reserve and I was telling my kids, I said, I've gone to mostly all these houses that you see at some point because, I was just that person. I don't even know why I was visiting these people, but I just made it out so that I went visiting everyone. And, but yeah, it was very important. And I think nowadays we're losing that. We're having this disconnection. We're too busy in our lives. Even for myself, I feel like most of the time I'm too busy to do things, which I'm not. Most of the times I'm just on social media scrolling when I can be out visiting a friend. So, so yeah, I'm making a big priority this year too, just to get in touch back to my childhood. And I think that's very important. And I think that strengthens us in so many ways. But yeah.
Do you think that like there's certain people where you can just kind of go to their house and you don't have to call ahead and you're always welcome there? And I know that for me growing up in a small area in East Bay, that's still the case in for some folks. Mostly it's my relatives, my But there are some people that are just really close family friends that you've built that bond with over the years. So do you have that experience as well?
Yeah, for 100%. I mean, you, of course, are just even close friends, neighbors even. Um, I just love to pop in here and there, and it's nice to, there's always welcome, there's always tea ready for you, and my parents, I'm lucky enough to live next door to them, so every day I'm there visiting, even if it's just for 10 minutes or something. I just stop in. Actually, even before this, I haven't gone there today, and my dad notices that. He just before this, he just gave me a call, and he's like, "You better stop in." So even after this, I have to head to my parents and stop in for a visit.
That's good. If there was someone that you could have a dinner with or visit with, anyone past or present, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so I thought about this question, and I would have to say my very best friend who passed away about 20 years ago. And she was a very close friend of mine. And she was one of that person that I would just unannounced always show up. And and it's funny, we had such a bond. She would know when I'm coming to visit. And so her name was Ashley Young. And if I could go back, if I can choose right now, that's who I would like to have a conversation with. And I just like, even today, with all the technology with Facebook and social media, I just knew how much she would appreciate it, really. So, just having, social media is great to build that connection, but it's still not the same as being in one-on-one with someone in physical sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering when what I've always find from visits is the stories, like the amount of stories that you get from people because you have that time with them. And I wanted to talk about stories, and I wanted to ask if you have ever heard stories about Mi'kmaq and Gaelic relations from your parents or from your relatives or community.
Well, the only thing that I can recall is how many of the elders spoke Gaelic here. Mi'kmaq elders spoke Gaelic. And so they had um that friendship. They communicated, and that was interesting to learn about. But yeah, that's one of the things that I can remember is that.
That's pretty cool. What about I know that you're also involved in a lot of different projects throughout the year, and your visits take you far and wide. Sometimes I get a message from Tara's like, "Oh, I'm headed down to Maine." Or you'll be just driving there for the weekend or something. You're driving here and there. Like you have relations that are all across a lot further than I expected sometimes. So where has that taken you?
Oh, well, I've been all over. It's even, going to events and meeting new people and building those connections. And then the first thing they say is like, any time, please do stop in if you're in the area. And I'm a person that is like, okay, like I just won't say it, I'll actually do it. And so I just, for me, um I I don't know if people operate like this or if it's just me, but I operate, I have like this inner calling, I don't know per se. It's I just have a feeling, and when I feel like I need to be somewhere, I just just go, without even thinking. People ask like, how do you do it? You're a mom and everything. And for me, luckily everything always works out. I never worry about things. I don't worry about finances or anything like that. It just somehow works out in its way. But for me, it's like I just go on that intuition of going places, and it just follows through and works out, and mysteriously. As funny as that sounds.
I like that's a trust. That's a good trust to make.
And I never know like what's the purpose for me to be there, but once I'm there,
Yeah.
it comes together why I need to be there for that reason. Um, it's also having that for being a Mi'kmaq woman, even having that connection to the land. I think sometimes too that land also calls me, even if I'm not aware or not. And until I'm there in that territory, it serves a purpose when I'm there.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Freedom March that you're working to organize. Yeah.
Yeah, so this year it's going to be our fourth annual Freedom Day March. So what Freedom Day is it's when residential school survivors were released for the summer back to their communities or their families for the summer. My father, both of my parents are residential school survivors. So I'm first generation from that. Um, so residential school, a lot of Canada and throughout the world is just learning about residential school, especially when the bodies were discovered in Kamloops. And during that time, my father, being a residential school survivor and being in residential school for 11 years, when the bodies of the children were discovered, it really triggered him. Weeks went by, and one morning, because I'm always at my parents' every morning, I have coffee over there, because I live next door. So growing up, um, my dad always talked about his experience through residential school and his trauma. I think him being able to express his traumas really impacted for us to have a better life, and him dealing with his own traumas. And he always talked about June 21st. It's also Aboriginal Day, but growing up, he would say June 21st. Well, that's Freedom Day. That's when we were released back home. And the coming weeks of or the after the weeks of went by, my father uh one morning he wakes up and he goes to me, he's like, Tara, I had a dream. And I was like, yeah, what was your dream about, Dad? And he was like, I had a dream we had a march. And right away I knew what he was talking about. And because growing up, I heard the stories. And he goes, we had a march on Freedom Day. And so he was going on about his dream that he had. And you know I said, you know what, I'm going to put this on social media. I'm going to put this on Facebook and see like what kind of reaction we'll get from this. And sure enough, there was a big reaction to it, and everybody was asking me and telling me that I need to honor my father and other residential school survivors. And so uh, I had good help with the grassroots grandmothers here in Migamagi, like with Doreen Bernard and Ducey Howe, and they helped me along the way to set this march up. So this year it's going to be our fourth annual Freedom Day March, and everybody's able to attend. It's just not for Indigenous people; it's for everyone. It's to learn about the impacts about you know what happened to the first peoples here in North America. But yeah,
That's going to be on June 1st. Is that right?
June 21st.
June 21st. And where is it again?
So we have it in the town of Shubenacadie. So that's where the residential school for Atlantic Canada is in Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia. So when the children were released, there's like a kilometer hike from where the old residential school site, the residential school site, it's no longer there. My dad's friend actually burned down the building. And but they used to have there was a train station down in right in downtown Shubenacadie, and they had the children march a kilometer from the school to the train station. So to honor those children that never came home or the survivors, we held a march in their honor in that kilometer walk.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for sharing that with us today. And I hope that some folks that might not have heard about that are maybe able to attend the Freedom Day March this year. I hope to get to it this year. And I'm really grateful that you took the time to meet with us tonight.
Mhm.
I'm going to switch the gear a little bit because I have another guest that I want to feature. And you're so welcome to stay on and listen to our interview, Tara, as well.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about just the knowledge. Like the feast that we're having tonight is the knowledge and the truth and understanding the effects of colonization on our communities and how that impacts all of us and how we're all part of the healing process. So folks that might not be aware of centralization, maybe you're just hearing about it for the first time, or maybe you've heard a little bit about it but not too sure. So in the 1940s, the Canadian government tried to force relocate Mi'kmaq and Nova Scotia to two reserves. One of them was the reserve that Tara was talking about, the area called Shubenacadie, and the other is Eskazoni. And today, stories about the truth and the effect of this um, poorly crafted social experiment by the Canadian government are coming to light, among other indignities by the Canadian government and the British Crown. So the next person I want to introduce is a friend and collaborator, Sarah Prosper. And Sarah also comes from Eskazoni First Nation. And Sarah is a dancer, a choreographer, a recreation therapist, storyteller, activist, and adventurer. And she is someone who is leading the way at weaving stories of truth and traditional knowledge and bringing it to the stage, combining elements of theater, dance, and music. And I'm actually working on a project with Sarah right now at the Highland Arts Theater. It's called Mimigej. And that is a tribute to the Mi'kmaq stories of centralization. So what we're talking about. The hope is that more people become aware of the true history and begin to understand the concept of two-eyed seeing, which is an idea that comes forward from Elder Albert Marshall, a way of looking at the world, seeing things through traditional Indigenous ways of knowing, as well as incorporating Western ways of knowing. So I'm going to start this by sharing a video about Sarah Prosper's most recent production called Samguan. And after that, you're going to see the visit that I had with Sarah. So I'm going to get my friend Kieran to play the trailer and then watch the video.
Two I see.
Oh, it's glitching. Huh. Is everything okay, Kieran?
Is the sound working there? Sorry.
Sound is working, but the video is stopped.
Okay, might because I made it full screen. Sorry about that.
Education through his different ways of seeing the world. And our
I'll
ways,
just bring it back maybe.
consciousness.
Bring it back
We are
first.
interdependent in every
Sorry, Bradley.
Oh, I was just saying you can start from the beginning. That'd be great.
Oh yeah. Maybe. Sorry about that.
True I see into me is a guiding principle in our life. It is not meant for I as a Mi'kmaq, to live by one perspective or one consciousness. We are interdependent in every sense of the word. We have to take the best, what the white man has brought forth through his education, through his different ways of seeing the world, and our ways. And to bring those two together, we all have to learn from each other. We welcome science, but we also have to depend on this knowledge that has been evolving for thousands and thousands of years to our language and to our belief systems. The Mi'kmaq word for sustainability, in my humble opinion, is encompassed.
So the piece that Sarah brought was it's called Samguan, which is the Mi'kmaq word for water. And the whole concept behind the production was reconnecting with water, and it incorporated traditional dance as well as contemporary dance, teachings, and creativity. And that brought these concepts to a stage that maybe hasn't really happened before, at least in our community in Sydney. So it was really groundbreaking. And this is the next year, the next version of it. So the next iteration of Sarah's creative process is Mimigech. So I got together with Sarah to have this conversation I'm about to share with you. And it's all about creativity and where she's in her own artistic process. So Kieran, I'll get you to play that second video. Hello.
Good.
Tapalim Gumo, thank you very much for agreeing to meet with me.
Welcome here. Yeah.
Maybe you could introduce yourself, and you could introduce yourself with Enigma if you'd like.
Yeah. Nindalos is Salish, Sarah Prosper, Ahwedebexi, Eskzoni, and I go by Neen Negum, or she or her. My name is Sarah, I'm from Eskzoni, and yeah, that's me.
Well, I'm wondering a few things because we've got some people on this call who are, some are from Mi'kmaq, some are from all parts of Canada, and some are from across the seas. So I wanted to paint the picture today a little bit about where you've come from on your journey with Samguan and where we're headed with Mimigech. But I wanted to know what two-eyed seeing means to you.
Yeah. Well, two-eyed seeing to me, it means to understand that, Mi'kmaq ways of knowing and the world views are just as important as all the others. And that when we enter into spaces and that and are putting action into the world, that you can answer those questions from your perspective. And you have to really dig deep sometimes to know what that is. So in a whole new way, what does that look like? Does that mean, understanding something from the language? Does that mean asking someone else? Does that mean you don't know the answer? So it can be all sorts of things in that range. Yeah.
Did you find with Samguan that you kind of presented a few different ideas of that?
Yeah. Well, Albert Marshall, he played his voiceover, and he spoke, truthfully about what Nidablit means to to him, you know, to use those two worlds and bring them together, and what does that look like when they're together and feel like, and what can happen in a good way going like forward. So yeah, we brought Albert's voice into it, and then also in the show as a whole, you know, we used the theater. That's you know, not a only way of being in the world, but you know, there was a story, there was people, there were songs, and we're here now. So bringing that into the space is to I see it. So just being here.
Just being here at the,
Yeah.
in the theater and having different audiences, different
Yeah.
people come and hear those stories.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of links to my next question, actually, that how does traditional expression inform contemporary expression? So, in other words, like, you know, we see certain things that are deemed as traditional in certain cultures, in Mi'kmaq culture and in Gaelic culture, but sometimes individuals reach beyond that or expand on that idea. So like in your case, a contemporary dance form or a theater piece. How does the traditional inform what we see as maybe not traditional?
Yeah, that's like it's such a cool question, because everyone, you know, it's all over the world, right?
Yeah.
You know, people were once original, traditional, whole, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
So if we think about traditional and the traditional values that we follow today, those were once contemporary. Those were once brand new and just happening.
Yeah.
Like we're doing stuff today. So I think the mix of the two and our understanding of our worlds and our ideologies and our values within traditional and contemporary ways of knowing can be mixed, because they have to be. You can't exist without tradition, and you can't go forward and make new things without contemporary and new forms of knowing. So that's kind of how I view it, and I try not to, you know, feel like there's like one answer, because there isn't. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know what else I was going to add there, but I feel like traditional ways of knowing are being built right now. Yeah. And yeah, we were talking about this the other day, is that, okay, if we consider, you know, doing a gojoa, playing maltes, having gatherings, you know, fishing, eeling, you know, doing all these traditional practices in our life, and bringing them in today, into our today world and our today bodies, then what we do today will be traditional to people in 100 years.
Right. Yeah.
So that really matters, and like what you uphold and what is remembered is really important. So, and then you get into, you know, the who gets to do it.
Yeah.
You know, who gets to be a part of this knowledge, and who gets to hold that space, essentially. But that happens in every part of the world. If you looked at the whole world as art, you'd be like, every word that you speak, English or French or Gaelic or Mi'kmaq, that's from someone's tradition, and we're using it. So, yeah, I don't know if that's an answer or question.
So when you go into your process, when you
You're
go
like,
in your process, like, you're kind of discovering as you go, because no one's really done what you're doing in a sense. Or have you had people do what that you looked up to when you're growing up?
yeah. I always looked up to my teachers in school. Most of my immersion school teachers, like as a little kid, were survivors of like residential school, and you know, but I didn't know that. It wasn't something that they like told us. but I looked up to them because they were so wrapped in our world of who we are and the importance of that. And it stuck with me. It made me make sure that I did those things in my life today. I look up to my Gijou Bessie, and she's 91, and you know, she's trailblazed along the way, and you know, bakes and makes her soups, but every single day is a good day, you know. I really look up to people who tend to the land. My nose is running.
Mine is. It's chilly in here.
But people in general, I was always more fascinated with like the backlands and the weird things like climbing trees and quicksand and being in the water, and I just had a lot of questions all the time. So sometimes I would even say that I look up to like certain plants and animals. I don't know if that's, you know, a valid thing or not, but yeah, I definitely envision that in my, you know, what I hold close to my heart. And then the spirit of things that exist in our culture. So, you know, if I'm playing Waltus on a 80-year-old Waltus board and dice, I'm not just going to think about, you know, I'm playing this game. I'm thinking about who made it, the hands that carved it, and, you know, everything that went into it. So I look up to things like that. Yeah.
What do you think about the spirit of creativity?
Yeah.
Like putting an idea in your mind and saying, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to I can see it or I can feel something and it's calling me to create.
It's so important to follow your intuition in that way, because you won't know in words what any of that means. I still don't. After the thing happens, afterwards, I don't know what it means. But spiritually, I know I feel good. I know that it's created some kind of movement, you know, within our bodies, and a shift in our ways, just by being a part of it, or just by it like happening. That's really, you know, something that makes something alive and feel alive. When you're talking about something, you know, that you don't have to read it for it to matter, or it doesn't have to be on the news, you know, for it to matter. Yeah.
So, taking off from what you learned from Samgwan and wondering what stories are coming forward that you want to be telling for Mimigach.
Yeah.
What's coming forward for you for this?
Well, since someone, I definitely feel like we got a lot of questions. Like, as much as we got, you know, love and all those, you know, great words that came out of this, and, you know, people seeing our world differently for the first time. It was awesome to be a witness with those people. But there still remains like a lot of questions, and, you know, okay, if this show was about, you know, the spirit of someone, the spirit of that water, but also the inequities that Onu faced in terms of not having access to clean drinking water, the questions still remain: why do you live there? Oh, why? So how come you guys just don't move?
Right.
And, you know, being a community member, like what do you have to do to respond to that, you know? And like, you kind of like, you have to stop for a minute, like you have to take your time. I was like, oh, it was a big question, like to ask that, and you know, people all around the world are experiencing this, and that's very difficult. And that is sort of what I hoped. People will question that. I know that no immediate action would happen out of this, but I knew that there might be a shift in someone, feeling the way they feel about Ono. In my new show, when I was writing, at the end I wrote, "Gulen, you are good too." So hoping that in Mimigej that people will realize, oh, Akio, you are a good person too. And in hand with these stories, that maybe they'll understand why we can't leave our community just so we can have clean water.
Mhm.
And also the reason that reservations exist, that it wasn't because of us. We lived everywhere.
Mhm.
And where someone meets our reserve, that's a sacred thing. But also, not everybody values that today. And that concept and that way of seeing the world. So maybe I just kind of like an ode to that, but I have to step back a few years to understand where it all comes from. And not that far away.
No.
Not that far away a few years. It's only like 67 years ago.
Yeah.
And those people are here today to tell those stories.
They're still alive.
They're still alive, yeah. And so there's so many stories that need to be weaved and shared, but also carefully understood. Not everything needs to be shared. Some things aren't meant to be, public information, but the way we're able to express ourselves today is important. That's one thing I know for sure, is that we can't, hide or feel like we need to put something over and shield our spirit to everyone else because we're afraid something might happen. Yeah. And that is still so, something can happen, but we have a huge community and huge supporters and people all around us who've had these similar experiences that can, witness with us and say, yes, that's right, like that happened. Or, I hope going forward that this happens instead. Because that's really all you want to do. And, have fun together well at the end of the day. Yeah.
And I'm honored to be a part of the crew.
I'm really excited.
I'll make this story come to life. So
yeah.
if you're watching and you're in the area, you should come out to see Mimigej. It opens March 1st, right?
Yeah.
Fifth.
No, March 5th.
5th. I'm glad I put the post March 5th to 10th at the Highland Arts Theatre, and then who knows where it might go beyond that. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
So
Let's see.
From my heart, Willalin, Tapaliv, thank you so much. Tapalet.
Tapalet.
Yeah. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Willalin. Come in.
Come on. Hey. That went off pretty good. Not too many glitches. Happy that worked out well. So yes, thanks again. I want to mention that Samguan is also available online. We're going to put the it's all in full if you wanted to watch the previous show that Sarah did. We'll put the link up. And the tickets to Mimigej are open. Highland Arts Theatre, March 5th to 10th. I think we're going to go into some breakout rooms again and to have a chance to reflect on our interview there. So I'll let that, there we go. Now is the time we have set aside for the harvest. So I'd like people to, in the chat, maybe take a few moments to reflect on the conversations we've had, and you can write into the chat of things you might be inspired to do, after this visit. And we'll see what comes up. Here we can see the chat here. Oh yeah. What are some, yeah. In our conversation, there was a couple of things that places that I usually visit, like the lake, the Bredor Lakes, or the forest, but I've been not doing that because the snow is so deep. Uh, it's like 4 feet, 4 to 5 feet deep here. So I need to get into the habit of putting the snowshoes on my feet so that I can go to the places that I want to go. So some folks are saying they want to go onto the walk on June 21st, and so do I. I hope that people will come visit. People have some, yeah, it's time to get back in person. I think virtual visits are excellent with friends that are far away, and also in a time when we've got a pandemic. But there's nothing that beats a personal visit and stopping in a good friend's house. The joy of spontaneous visiting and visiting non-human beings as well. Yeah. Places and creatures and animals. Go find Bradley and hike up into the woods anytime. Bye. Learn a little Mi'kmaq. I love it. Yeah. Learn going to the march. Story Summer March. Visit more. Beautiful. Here, I'll pause that for a second. I'm nearing the video, yeah. I think before we close, I want to make sure we give a shout out to for the next visit. I'd like to welcome Francis to talk about what you're going to be hosting next week. Oh, you're muted, I think. Can't hear you.
I'm muted. Okay,
Oh,
can
there
you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, Sinua Bradley Tapali Hort and I hit room home mode Tapalet, I guess below Wileliok to Sarah and to Tara, Ranchavula Hopma. So next week I'm really excited that we're going to have a different kind of feast for Feast the County. We're going to tell stories about death and death practices and beliefs in Gaelic communities, and remembering some of the old ways of the Gaels, how they cared for, buried, and praised their family and neighbors who passed away. And also wondering where all of this may have a place in our communities today. Um, and the agenda and the guests are still a work in progress. So we'll tell you more about it. So watch your email in the next week or so. And in the meantime, I would love to extend an invitation to anyone who's listening. If you have any stories you'd like to share, just feel free to give an email to me. My name, Frances McCachen, is my email, just all one word at gmail.com. So it'll be, if you have any little stories you want to share, I'd love to hear from you. I've been talking to some folks, and it's a really interesting topic. It really draws out a lot of funny, meaningful, beautiful stories. So hope to see you next week. Bibi Talicher Fehiki.
Tapalet Franga. Looking forward to that chat. It's something that I definitely pondered on a lot myself. I'm gonna say a few things that I want to link to. As I mentioned before, you can watch Samguan online, so that's available on YouTube. Also, Tara put up a link. I'm going to put it up again. You can follow. Maybe I'll get Tara. Can you say that? Unmute. Let's unmute. Just want to let people know where they can follow to learn more about, to be able to connect with the Freedom March.
Hi, yes, you can follow us on Facebook on Maui Godik. So in Maui Godik in Mi'kmaq, in English, it means growing together. So that's a organization, an NGO that myself and my other partners have established a few years ago, and so we've been putting the Freedom March together. You can also reach out to us if anybody has questions on our email, and that's mowigudi@gmail.com. But yeah, yeah, or you can reach out to me personally on Facebook. Either Tara Helen Lewis on Facebook. So, but yeah.
Lala. There's a couple of other links. I know I don't want to inundate you with links, but I just think there's certain things I talked about today that there's more information on if you want to learn about. So the link to Samguan is there. And if people want to learn more about centralization, there's a beautiful documentary that was put onto APTN, and that's available online as well. And also the meeting that I had with Sarah, we ended up talking longer than the time allowed. So there's an extended interview that's also available if you're interested in hearing more about her grandfather, Wilfred Prosper, who was a well-known fiddler, Mi'kmaq fiddler. And we talked about a few other topics as well. So I'm gonna close this session tonight with a music video that I actually created with Sarah Prosper. And we did it at the Bredor Lakes. And for folks who know where I'm from in East Bay is just across the water from Eskazoni. So in this way, we're neighbors from right across the water. And we came together in October to tell a story about ancestors and people who are no longer with us, but that are still dancing with us, to feel the presence of folks who have moved on to the spirit world. So we combined a Gaelic song and allowed Sarah just to dance freely with that. And Tara Lewis was on set with us for that as well. And it was filmed by Matthew Ingram. So I'm going to ask if Kieran, if you don't mind sharing the screen. I want to say thank you to everybody for everything tonight.
Well,
Gaelic, Allendyne, oh, England. Yo, wouldn't know yo, Allendyne, oh, England. Eravad chugarig skunjahu chiremanin Allendyne, oh, yo, wouldn't know yo, Allendyne, oh, England. Skunjahu chiremanin Chabeshet Marakala Allendyne, oh, yo, wouldn't know yo, Allendyne, oh, England. Chula megan jach de vag, terug nach mi van lavrod, Allendyne, oh, England. Yo, wouldn't know yo, Allendyne, oh, England. Allendyne, aloin and lianen, chula megan jahu hadish, Allendyne, oh, England. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight, and hope you have a great rest of your week, and look forward to making more art, creating in this beautiful place I get to call home. And thank you, Tara, for joining us this evening and sharing your stories. Archivali, hola.
Archivali.
Shivali, I believe Lord.
Pianach
Leave.
Pianach
Leave.
Well, all I'm Sid, and what awesome.
Mhm.
Julie.
Namokas.